seconds. 59.
58.
57.
56.
55.
54.
53.
52.
51. 50.
49.
48.
47.
46.
45.
44.
43.
42.
41.
40.
39.
38.
37.
36.
35.
33.
32.
31.
30.
29.
28.
27.
26. 25.
24.
23.
22.
21.
20.
19.
18.
17.
16.
15.
14. 13. 12.
11.
10.
9.
8.
6.
6. What happened to 7?
Just kidding.
7. 5.
4.
3.
2.
1.
Hello, guys.
Hello, that's a very cool intro.
Thank you so much. I think Marian discovered Marian. You know Marian. You remember Marian? Marian Serile. He discovered it, and we are using it since. We started with this intro, and it will be the outro as well. At the end, we are going to use it. We love it. We always smile when we see it. So let's just wait a little bit. We have around 18 people right now. Maybe you can tell us how you've been doing in the past years, because I think you've been to Romania last time in 2019, I think.
Yeah, we were there right before COVID.
Before COVID, yeah.
Yeah, we were there before COVID. Yeah, and where was it?
I thought that was Poland right before COVID.
Oh, Marian is here as well.
Yeah.
Hey, Mary.
Hello, Marian.
Oh,
He removed himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Everything's been going really well. Yeah, I mean, we suffered through COVID like everyone else. Had to refund everyone, went through financial strife, and now we've come back to another side, and we're good.
Survived.
We survived.
Still standing.
Yeah.
So I think everyone knows about your live workshops because I get messages all the time. Did you see that workshop? Have you attended it?
Yeah.
You have a lot of fans in Romania.
Yeah, we love Romania. Romania is one of our favorite places.
Hello, Marian.
Hello, Erika.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So as I explained to you earlier, this is these critique sessions. We are doing it for our community. It's not like something we are promoting outside the community. So we just want the photographers to learn new things, to see how other photographers are thinking about some different images. So as I said, we've got around 100 images. We've selected 21 for tonight.
Perfect.
So whenever you want to start, we are going to share your screen, and it's going to be mostly a discussion between you two.
Yes. Okay. Yes,
So how do you propose to do it?
Yeah, let us talk a little bit first, and then we'll go into the photos. Because I think it's important first to know what critique is for Lanny and I, and how we approach it.
And what it's not.
And what it's not, yeah.
I think it's really important to explain to the people why the critique is important. What is the purpose of a critique session, and how you do it, and why you do it.
Yeah, the whole point of critique is because we want to get better, right? And we want to, unlock new ways of seeing and thinking. So it's always, it's only for the future. It's not for now and the past. We're always critiquing for the future. And it's never about, for us, it's never about, is it a good photo or is it not a good photo? Are you a good photographer or are you not a good photographer? It's only ever about looking at the photo as is and how could it possibly be better? What could have been done to possibly improve it for next time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I really think I liken it to the editing process of a book. Like as authors, they get to write a book and then they get to edit it 6, 7, 8 times sometimes. They do rewrites of the book before it gets published into a book. Obviously, we don't have that luxury of photographers, especially wedding photographers. We can't go out and redo the shoot. I mean, sometimes we can. We can go and try ideas again and stuff like that. But for the most part, the critique process, I feel like, is like the editing process. What would we do differently next time? How would we approach a scene differently? How would we think about the scene differently? And so if the photographing is the creative process, which I hope it is for everyone, like that's when we're at sort of hopefully peak creativity. The editing and critiquing would be the opposite of that. It would be the creative destruction process. It's where we pick everything apart. There's no like huge amount of joy in it, but it's a necessary part of the process in terms of getting better as a photographer and getting better as an artist, really. So.
Yeah, and I'll say that we don't go out of our way to be overly harsh or critical, or to be, overly complimentary in any way. Like it's just honesty. We feel like that's being as honest as possible is the best way that we can give the most value. So that's what we'll do. And the other thing I'll say is we try to always critique. And if we're being critiqued, always try to take it from a perspective of no excuses. Like, it doesn't matter. Yeah, maybe there was a wall behind you and you couldn't back up anymore. We get it. But the idea is to see and appreciate that if you could have backed up another step, it could have been improved in this way or that way, so that we know for next time to be aware of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then the last thing I'll say is that we will try and avoid hopefully we're successful with this, in telling you what we would have done. Because quite frankly, we can never tell you what we would have done because we're not in the scenario, we don't know the weather, we don't know the couple, we don't know the restrictions that were placed on you, we don't know any of that stuff. But what we can tell you is the problems we would have been trying to solve. And so that's going to be really the framework by which we critique these images is these are the problems that we'd be trying to solve in this scenario. It doesn't mean we would have solved them. We might have ended up with the exact same photo as you did without solving them. But just pointing out that is such an important part of critiquing for the future, like Lanny said.
So we developed here like two things. When we discuss about an image, if you want, of course, so we also, because you are sending images to contests as well, so people are interested in wedding photography contests. So if you notice one of the image can be sent and is a possible award-winning image, you can say that and why. It's it can be.
Well, I could talk about awards and contests for
and the main purpose is to tell the photographers how to improve one image, how to make it better.
Perfect. Okay, well let's start it then. Okay, so I'm gonna go
feel free to crop the image, to adjust it a little bit if you want. So
is it showing my full screen? No, it's not.
So I think you should double click. No.
Yeah, I am. I'm showing full screen on mine, but it's not showing for yours. I'm going to represent.
Well, is that okay if it looks like that? Oh, I see. They're only seeing the thumbnail.
Just a sec.
Okay, let's share the screen again.
There. Is that working?
Okay. Let me check. Yeah, we're good now.
Okay, so you can see it full screen.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, no.
Oh, I
see
see.
this in my head. So. Okay, so we got 35 millimeter here. That's a great lens to be photographing this from. I love that the photographer's really up close in this moment because it really affects the impact of the photo. The fact that the photographer is in there, filling the frame with a 35, they're being bold. They're not shooting this from, with a 70 to 200 from 20 feet away. This has a lot of impact, this photo, because the fact that the photographer is so close. So a few issues that I would be trying to solve with a photo like this. You've got an awesome moment, and I love all the different layers going on. There is a little bit of an overlap between a few of the layers, right? Like the priest's nose and this girl's face. It's not even that we need her whole face, but even just her entire hand, I think would improve that composition. Something about cut off fingertips just sort of bothers me. And I realized that in order to photograph this scene, you had to make some tough choices, because if you were to include this whole lady's face, you might have had to exclude the two people coming in here on the right of the screen. I think that lady's face is more important, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, looking at it in retrospect.
I often kind of play a little mental trick for myself when I'm photographing. Is I kind of just imagine the moment or the scene just like freeze frame, almost like Matrix style, and just imagine like everything were to just pause, and then I can move my camera anywhere I want it. And usually it pops out at me like, oh, I want to move my camera to the left here. That's what I'm seeing in this moment. If I can do anything, it's move the camera left. Basically solve the exact same thing Erika just described. Get a little bit more of that lady in her hand, and maybe a little bit more side profile, priest face. It's a little mental.
Yeah, the other thing that would solve actually is it would get rid of that highlight, because that's another problem with this photo is, you know, you've got the focal point of the photo being the emotion on the bride here, but the thing that's drawing my eye, that's distracting my eye away, is this big highlight in the background, this blown out door. And moving left, like Lanny said, would solve that compositional error as well. So, yeah.
So that's, assuming you're not going to kick over a vase, step left a little bit.
Yeah, but I really like how you did include the back of the priest here as well. But yeah, getting bubbles around those people's heads would really improve this image. Ready to go to the next one? Okay. All right. I really like this frame. I really like how the photographer has simplified the frame down to like 2 elements. Good choice of f-stop, aperture 4, so that you've got like both elements very recognizable and readable.
It's really well done.
I do think it would probably be better with a wider lens that close than a 59. But the frame is really well done. The edges are clean.
I feel like one of the reasons this works, that I feel it was well done, is because I can't tell if it's a portrait or a real moment. And so kudos either way, whether or not it was set up and directed by the photographer or not, it's believable that it could have just happened because it's not perfect. If it was set up, I imagine it might have been too perfect looking. So yeah, I mean, if I'm nitpicky, this was my photo and I'm editing now, I might want a little bit more on the right edge in exchange for the what's on the left edge. So just to balance it out a little bit more. I think it's great. The depth of focus is exactly where you want it.
Yeah, it's good.
Really well done.
Yeah.
It's a cool idea. It's a good story.
Yeah, I think this could be.
So with I just want to mention the contests. Like I said, I could talk about awards and contests for an hour straight, and I have. We have obviously submitted to contests, but we haven't did a while, honestly, and rarely do anymore. But in terms of like which images are worth submitting, it depends on the contest, right? It depends on the judges. So it's really hard to say. But I would say that this one is a standout image. So it's worth, for the right contest, with the right criteria and the right judges, I throw that one in. Do we want to just pop out and see if there's any comments that we Mary's just let us know if there's anything that. Yeah.
So there, for the moment, everyone is saying hello. We don't have any comments. If that was the question.
Yeah, if there's any questions or anything.
Yeah. So I'll
just let us know.
I will let you know, and some of the questions that we pick from the audience will pop up on the screen. So I know you don't see the screen
Yeah.
while you are talking about the images. Okay, but I'll let you know when we have the questions. I will interrupt you.
Yeah. Okay, sounds good. Okay, so okay, as silhouettes go, there's a few problems I've been trying to solve with this photo. First of all, I think you've got really good movement in this silhouette. But where the image, I think, is falling a little bit flat for me personally is that the couple are medium-sized, okay? So I feel like this image could benefit from either being closer or further away. I think closer because I really like the silhouette of her hair. Like I feel like that is a defining feature of this particular bride. She's got this crazy hair. Her hair kind of looks like Lanny's, especially Lanny when I met him because he had long hair like this. But so I think you could do something really neat and creative with silhouetting her hair, her head next to his head, right? And that would be so unique to this couple, right? You get a unique photo because you were capitalizing on the uniqueness of the couple. Whereas this photo is sort of capitalizing on the uniqueness of the couple, but also trying to capitalize on the fact that it's a cool silhouette. So in my opinion, this could be improved by.
Yeah, if it was still silhouette, like I like the choice of the silhouette.
Yeah, it would still be a silhouette closer up.
Yeah.
But it would just be simplified in terms of taking away.
Because the light's strong, the movement in the moment is strong. It's compositionally is medium, like
Medium
happy
size.
medium. And I would say that's a general comment on environmental portraits. Is it's really hard to make a really standout environmental portrait where the subject is medium sized. Generally speaking, if they're big, filling the frame, or much smaller, tinier. So if they're big or small, when they're medium sized, generally speaking, it's medium impact at best. So yeah.
Okay, and then move on to the next one. Okay, so we've got a few from this session that I've seen in the mix, or I think they're from this session. So here's the problems I would be trying to solve in this scenario. So first of all, what am I trying to feature? Okay. For me, in this scene, what's interesting is the color of the trees. Right? So I would be trying to simplify the frame down to the color of the trees and then figuring out how to implement the couple. So it's because this is obviously a portrait. So I think in this case, the photographer, had the couple first and then was thinking about the background. But you got to think about your background first, especially in this scenario where the light is so harsh, right? Because the light is also not working for you here. So how can I simplify this frame down to just the trees and get the light working for me as opposed to against me? Because right now the light is, the brightest part of the scene is her arm, right? Her blown out arm.
And the reason why I suspect the photographer didn't necessarily consciously ask themselves that or consider, like, what is this photo about? What am I drawn to? It's the colors and the leaves, because they've included the sky and the trees and the sidewalk and the couple. So they decided, I'm going to include sort of like, I find everything interesting, but really if we boil it down to the one or two most interesting elements, that helps guide where we go with the camera, where we position the subjects, and how we fill the frame.
Yeah, and then the light is going to guide you on where to go here as well, right? So again, we can't tell you what we do, but we can tell you, okay, we're going to use that hard light to our advantage. So that's the first thing. And then how can we use that hard light to our advantage and simplify the frame down to what's interesting?
I can tell you what I think I would try to do based on that.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to just seeing what I have to work with here. I'm probably going to try to fill my frame with the colorful foliage on the left. Okay, so I'm gonna move right, reposition, point my camera towards that foliage, find the right distance and focal length to fill my frame, fill the background with just colorful leaves. Don't need the sky, definitely don't want the blown out sidewalk. That's just a distraction. So I like the photographer's choice to get low, an angle up, to exclude the sidewalk, that's not interesting. Fill the background with the trees. And then position the couple within the light.
And then bring that exposure down.
Exposing for the highlight,
Right.
because the leaves are in the light, and if your couple's in the same light, they'll be in the same exposure.
Yeah, like if you brought your, if you filled the frame with the leaves and you brought your exposure down so that it was properly exposed for that highlight and eliminated all the other highlights, that would lead you how to position that couple. It would lead you to solve all these compositional errors. In this case, it looks like the pose came first, and all those other things basically got ignored in an effort to get this funky pose. It is a cool pose, it's a funky pose, it just doesn't work in this scenario, and it's not gonna work in this lighting.
Yeah.
So,
So start with your composition and your light,
light and then composition.
light and composition, and then that final ingredient is, okay, now we need the pose or the action or the movement or whatever.
So we have a question from the audience.
Go for it.
It's not about the image. It's something related to you. So Sabine is asking, what is your favorite lens, or maybe focal length? I don't know what. Probably.
Lens or focal length. Well, it really depends on the time of day, but I would say the majority of a wedding for us is photographed with a 35mm lens, and that's probably except for portraits. Okay, so everything outside of portraits. 90% of the day is a 35mm lens. When we get to portraits, like in this scenario, what we were just describing, we might, throw on an 85 or 50. But that's really the only time the 85 and the 50 come out is when we're doing portraits. It's got no, 85 and 50 doesn't have much use when we're documenting, unless we have to document from far away.
Yeah.
And about the party, I think you are still using the 16 to 35.
Yeah, and then the party is better. Yeah.
Do you still use Canon, or are you on Sony right now? I can't
Sony.
remember. You are Sony.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're
That's
Sony
good.
now. 16 to 35 for the dance for sure.
So the guy who asked the question is also a very big fan of Sony. So
Oh, nice.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
okay, let's go forward. Let's move forward. Thank you so much for your answer.
No worries. Okay, so this to me is probably out of my realm for critiquing, but we will give our best because this to me looks more like digital art. And I think it's a cool piece of digital art.
Well, and I would say, and for me, and this is again personal opinion, personal taste as a photographer, first and foremost, more than a visual artist. Like when I do this and I exclude the bottom half, so the mirrored part of this image, I see something that resembles a photograph. I mean, I'm not entirely sure, if it's a composite or it was, all in one exposure or not. I mean, that's but it could be executed with, like a really amazing.
It's definitely a composite though, because look at how sharp the silhouette is versus the 30 seconds.
Regardless of that, when I do this, for me, it's still within the realm of photography because it could be something similar pulled off with the right equipment and the right settings. But then when I add the bottom, I can tell it's not an actual reflection. Okay, so it's like digitally mirrored somehow in post-production, and that's what flips it into the realm of digital art from photography. So that takes me out of it, I guess, as a photographer.
Yeah.
So I have to more take it in and appreciate it as a piece of visual art.
Yeah.
Not like maybe a painting, in that it's different than photography.
Yeah. But okay, so let's just look at the silhouettes for a little bit then, because obviously it's not a documentary shot. I believe it's a composite because I don't think you can do that long exposure and get this sharp of a silhouette. So if you're controlling that, then I think the silhouette could be improved in a few ways, just with a little bit of negative space. So I really like the negative space in between the guy's legs. I think that negative space in between his legs makes him a very recognizable as a human silhouette. But I think there could be even more negative space, like maybe his arms out back, or maybe he has an arm out front in the walking motion. And then with the bride specifically, I think there could definitely be a little bit more negative space, because she kind of blends into that rock, which wouldn't be a bad thing if it looked intentional. Like if her wedding dress sort of just flowed right into the rock, and the rock were an extension of the wedding dress, and it looked intentional. But I think a little bit of her either holding up the dress and walking like the guy is, or taking a step or something to give a little bit more negative space around her, or the opposite, which is making it intentional that her dress flows right into the silhouette of the rock.
And if we go back to like what I was saying about contest, this is another good example of, for the right contest and the right judges, obviously it wouldn't qualify for all kinds of contests because it wouldn't abide by the rules. But for a contest where there were no rules and anything goes, and it's more a visual art, it could be submitted. But in that case, I'm noticing sort of all the imperfections, because it's a digital art piece in my mind. I almost feel like it's got to be visually perfect, and so I'm seeing the asymmetry between the top of the galaxy and the bottom of the galaxy, little things like that. I feel like if it is digital art like this, we got to bring in that attention to detail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because in certain types of pictures, the imperfection is what makes it real. And if you make it too perfect, it almost becomes unreal. But this is clearly going for sort of an unreal look. And so these imperfections don't really add to it. They sort of take away from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so actually this is a pretty good example. So we've got an 85 millimeter lens here, and this is a documentary moment. First of all, kudos for the photographer for seeing this. This is a great moment to see and photograph for sure. It's going to be very hard to make an interesting composition with an 85 millimeter lens from this far back. Okay. So I would say a 50 or 35 would be better in this scenario. And then just because all this looks like to me, even though it's a really strong moment and it's worth delivering to your clients, but it just looks like the photographer saw this, pointed the camera in that direction and took a photo.
And so the viewer sees this, the viewer doesn't feel it as much as they would if it's the same moment, but photographed with a wider lens from several giant steps closer.
Yeah, and with some intention behind your composition, right? So this, again, looks at the photographer, oh, there's someone crying over there, snap, move on, right? This is a great first shot, but if that moment continues, and it will, it looks like this can continue for a while, you park yourself there with a wider lens, and then you start problem solving all these compositional things, right? Like, do I want to include some of the other faces there? Do I want to get lower? Do I want to simplify the frame down to the woman crying and just the hands in the foreground? Again, I don't know the answer to all these questions, but just asking yourself those questions will force you into a more intentional composition.
And I think that's kind of because of the bullseye effect, because the subject and her moment is right there in the bullseye center of the frame. It doesn't lead me to believe or feel that the photographer was intentionally composing this to include or exclude anything. It feels like, again, there it is, aim, fire.
Okay, so yeah, really interesting. Great light in this photo, and I'm liking the flare, and I love the shadows on the ground. I kind of think
I
The
think,
sky is taken away from.
yeah, do this with your hand or your thumb or whatever to just exclude the bright white sky.
Not the flare, just the sky.
Yeah, leave the flare coming in from the top edge. But I think visually, compositionally, for my eye, it's stronger.
Yeah.
Because those highlights, bright highlights along the upper edge are pulling the eyes up there. They keep pulling the eyes up there. By excluding that, either compositionally when we're shooting or cropping, it focuses the attention faster where we want it to go, which is down on those shadows.
Yeah, this isn't going to be a perfect 2x3 crop, but
I think it's stronger.
it is, but I don't think the mountaintop cut off. It's got to be like, I'm not quite sure. I think I think.
Maybe look at maybe just that little.
Yeah, but just taking, actually, I think that's better.
Mm-hmm.
Taking most of the sky out, the eyes are way more drawn to that white dress by eliminating all that blown out pixel real estate on this photo.
Yeah, when you just click to this like that, I think it hits you faster. It's a slower read. It's good payoff once you find them, but it just takes a second longer to really take it in and appreciate it.
Yeah, and one of the things Lanny and I are often doing with these photos, not intentionally, but we realized when we're looking at our contact sheets afterwards, is that we're usually including sky or ground, rarely both. I mean, there are cases where there's exceptions to this rule. There's always exceptions to the rule, but generally speaking, we're either including the ground or the sky. But those two elements are often competing for each other. So eliminating one of them often makes a more compelling frame.
But I mean, I love it. I love the positioning. I don't know if it's, if you're up on a hillside or a drone or whatever, I don't care. It's really well done.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly where I would have had them. That's exactly how I would have exposed. And then we would have been, having them walk back and forth just like that, trying to get the most interesting shadows and movement we could.
I guess the only other, if I were looking at this photo, having taken it myself, I might have asked them to walk there again with a little bit more separation so that their shadows are a little bit more defined from one another. I mean, that's getting really nitpicky, but that's what I'd be looking for.
Well done.
Okay, so I feel like this is the same session. So this couple is giving you so much gold in terms of the posing, but it's distracting you from the photography. So I feel like when you go into a scene like this, and if couples are doing things like this, oh my God, yeah, it's like, oh my God, it's just like, get the moment. But we gotta let light and composition come first, especially if it's a portrait scenario. So get them to save all this goodness once you got your light and composition. Okay, so we're a little bit closer here in that you've simplified the frame down to less elements. But you can see where the gold is, right? The gold is, we've got this hard light, it's still a little bit overexposed, but we've got this hard light on this dark background. So get that camera low, because the entire road is taking.
And by just lowering that camera right down onto the surface of the ground, right there immediately you can now exclude the blown out sidewalk from your composition by filling the frame with the background, exposing for the highlights on them, and those highlights are just going to pop on the shadows behind, right?
Yeah, you have to go wide here, unfortunately, because you've got the couple quite far away. But once you got your light composition figured out, you can get the couple to do this. You're just gonna have to problem solve, right? You might have them turn a little bit more so the light's on the front of his face as opposed to the side of his face. You might have her, instead of standing in a highlight to the side here, you might have her stand in a highlight in the background so that you can layer those two people in a more interesting way. But yeah, it looks like a fun couple for sure.
On the post-production side, the blues in the sidewalk behind, the blues are coming through too much. You can correct that just in your HSL settings. Just turn the saturation slider down on the blue channel. Well, the first thing I know I'm going to do, if possible, is bend my knees, get my camera lower.
Get your camera lower so that they show this right.
I don't need the blown out aisle in front of them. There's something interesting there, so I get lower.
But if you did get lower, you might get an interesting reflection too.
Well, that's true. Yeah, but yeah, just bring them up into the center of the box there. And I would almost say, exposure-wise, I mean, he's bowing down there, so that's interesting. But it's hard to know what else was happening. I assume as those doors are open and they're coming in through there, there's more than a few seconds of opportunity. And what I'm drawn to want to do, I mean, obviously wouldn't work in this exact moment because of their position, is go darker and get an interesting silhouette there. And then you'll still have the right exposure on some of the audience. Like if you look on the right edge, that guy's blowing out as it is. If you went to stop and a half darker, then you'd be obviously exposed for silhouettes within that box. And you'd obviously have to wait and shoot through it to get a nice silhouette with clean separation. But it's something that I would have been keeping my eye on.
Well, and yeah, I think this guy is quite a bit blown out. I'd like, you could just do a linear grading here to get these people's exposure a little bit lower down.
He's clipped. So then it's just going to turn like a muddy gray. But yeah.
Or crop them out, actually.
Yeah.
Actually, we could crop them out probably like that.
And I think.
Well, it's not straight.
No.
Like it's not a good crop, but.
I'm also, it feels a bit bullseye. How do we get rid of that? Feels a bit bullseye again for me. So in addition to getting lower, I probably would have asked myself, what's more interesting? The leading lines of the aisle.
Which I think
could be interesting, especially if we're a bit wider, leading the viewer's eye into the silhouette or into the two people there. Or whatever's above, I don't know if there's stained glass or chandeliers or something up there that would come through that exposure. But I would probably choose one or the other rather than the bullseye.
Okay, so I'm going to be brutally honest with this one, which is this looks like an idea someone saw on Pinterest. I mean, we've all seen the ring but it's like a shittier version of the one that they saw on Pinterest. Okay, listen, there's nothing wrong with emulating someone else's work. That, especially at the beginning of your career, I feel like emulating other people's work is a really good way to practice the skills and a really good way to become a really good craftsperson at photography. But this is like they took the idea and just took it one step and didn't perfect it. Okay, so to me, it's not interesting at all. I can't even actually really tell what it is. The only reason I know what it is because I've seen the trend of this photo and I know what they're trying to achieve.
And I'd say when you are, you're going for some sort, you're going for a photographic idea, right? This obviously isn't something that just organically happened. This is the photographer's idea or another photographer's idea, but now we're trying to execute it. And it's almost like you've got much smaller margin for imperfection, margin for error in those situations, because the viewer knows this is 100% the photographer's vision and execution. So you can't get away with all kinds of things that we can get away with when we're documenting real organic moments. So for example, at first glance, I'm not sure if that's a nail sticking out of his mouth.
Actually, at first I didn't think it was a nail at first.
So that's an example of, okay, we gotta correct that. It's all on us because this isn't a real moment. So I need to lift my camera or recompose or reposition the ring so that it's obviously a ring and not a nail or whatever. Those little, that attention to detail, we have to, you gotta go for it. If you're gonna pull off this idea. And if it's not perfect, it's not an award winner, it's fine. You deliver it, it's great.
Or you don't deliver it.
Or you don't.
We do that all the time with clients. We'll take some shots and we'll be like, what?
But these are the reasons it wouldn't necessarily, win an award in a competitive contest with judges who see this idea executed by other photographers.
Yeah. You just gotta sort of really ask yourself, what am I trying to feature here? Okay, so start with that idea, and then building a photo is like climbing a ladder. It's one step at a time. Okay, the ring looks like a nail. How can I fix that? What if I turned it sideways? Okay, I want to feature their sensuous lips in this photo. How can I do that? So it's just one rung at a time. That's often what I'm asking myself. I'm not going into a photo shoot with creative finished product ideas. I'm going into a photo shoot with an idea, maybe like this, but then you look at the photo and you say, okay, how can I make this less shitty? Okay, I take this step. Okay, how can I make this less shitty? I take this step. So instead of striving for perfection, we're just taking tiny steps to make it better each time. So that's a little mindset shift that really helps me, because I feel like as photographers, we go into these sort of ideas thinking it's going to be perfect and not taking the steps and the time required to get them to that final step.
Yeah, and so then on the post-production side, I would be inclined to try this as a high contrast black and white edit, because I feel like the color it's been pushed really warm, and it's almost a distraction from what I think the photographer meant this to be about, which was the shape and form of the beard, the lips, and the ring. And as a black and white, I think that would just be more clearly communicated. The color kind of pulls me away from that.
Yeah, and then the other thing this photo unfortunately features a lot is, features the groom's beard, but it's also featuring the hair that all of us women have on our faces that's barely noticeable, but it's being accentuated in this photo because of the backlight. Yeah. Okay, so great perspective. I love the fact that you're low, and I love the fact that you're 16 millimeters on this dance shot.
You know what it needs? The light works.
The light's good.
The light's good. Composition is unique and unexpected, and so it's compelling for those reasons. I would personally, if I had the freedom to entirely just adjust my camera, I'd probably angle up more so I have more crotch, less dance floor. But that's nitpicky.
Yeah,
I do love.
Is that scattered ground?
Yeah, exactly. Are we including or excluding the ground? And then I do love how in the upper left and right corners there's little Easter eggs up there with those dancers with their reaction. Is where is the room for improvement? I would say the first place I go is moment.
Yeah.
Take away the awesome light and the cool, unique composition, and what do we have left? Is that a strong moment? I'd say there's a strong moment in the upper left-hand corner, but other than that, it's actually kind of a flat moment.
It's almost strong.
It could be,
But
and maybe a half second later, it was an epic moment. So just shooting through it and trying to find a frame that is the most interesting moment.
This boring guy.
Boring
And that boring guy would be okay. Like if they were going crazy and there was alcohol flying, the boring guy would add an interesting juxtaposition. But yeah, it's not the peak of that moment.
Shoot through the moments, and keep this in mind whenever you see an opportunity. Oh, get down on the legs again, and hopefully you've got many to choose from when it's time to curate. Are you the same photographer?
You know what? It looks like the same room because it looks like the ceiling looks the same.
Okay, I will, and again, this is taken with a grain of salt because this is personal taste. But I would say that the post-production does take me out of it. So when we're shooting as photographers, our goal is always, I feel, to hide the photographer. And what I mean by that is I want the viewer to see and appreciate the moment, the subject, the story, and not the photographer or the photographer's idea or the photographer's vision. The sign of a good photo is a photo that makes the viewer feel as though they were present there in the scene and really be drawn into the story or the moment or the human versus the photographer's technique or whatever. And the same goals apply for when we sit down to edit the image. As an editor, when I'm toning the image, my goal is to hide the post-production. So I want the viewer to, again, be drawn in to see and appreciate the moment, the story, and the subject versus my post-production and my editing. And I feel like this is an example where for me personally, and maybe it's because I'm a photographer and a photo editor, I see the post-production. And so it pulls me, it's actually distracting me from.
It looks just a little bit overcooked.
It's falling off the edge.
It's overstated as opposed to understated. Yeah.
Ben Chrisman describes it really well. He basically describes editing like you go to the Grand Canyon to view the view, and when you park your car in the parking lot, the view's way over there. It's not that great, but as you get closer and closer to the edge, the view just looks better and better and better until you take one step too far and you totally kill it. That's what happens. That's how we find the edge, is we take it too far and then we throttle it back a bit. I feel like the colors, the clarity, everything just pushed a bit too far here. And I can see your dodging. Dodging on the girl behind there, the haloing around.
Also, this guy, I don't think anything over here is adding to your frame. I think this crop actually fills the frame with what's interesting more. I do understand why you kept it, because his feet are a great element of that photo, but this is one of the hard things about being a photographer. Sometimes you have to get rid of something really good in order to make the picture better. It's like that editing thing, right? You gotta kill your darlings, and in some cases we gotta kill part of the image in order to make it
I review that. That's not 2x3, but maybe you can still include the shoe. But I agree.
Okay, first of all, I will say this is, for the photographer a few images ago, right? We've got this hard, very, very hard light. This is how you use this hard light to your advantage, right? You expose for those highlights and you let everything else fall into darkness,
and position those highlights on shadows.
And so you've got highlight on a dark background here, which really makes this piece pop. The brightest part of it though is right here. So that's where my eye is going. And so if I'm photographing this scene, you've got interesting light on the crease, but and it's almost like you're a little bit of a moth to a flame here. Like, you know how moths are at nighttime attracted to lights? That's what you're just attracted to the light, so you're like flying towards the light, but you've forgotten everything else, right? So there's nothing interesting about this composition. The only thing that's interesting here is the light. So that light is not enough to take you through. Not enough to take this photo and turn it into like.
It's a bit of a moment because they timed it with
It's a little bit of a moment.
So that's better.
But maybe, and I'm just spitballing ideas here because it possibly couldn't have worked. But maybe you've got this highlight here. Can you use that to silhouette one of their heads on it, right? Like maybe you can position your camera so that they turn to look at each other and you're filling the frame. And if they turn to look at each other and you could step to the right a bit, you could get the silhouettes of their profile in that highlight. I mean, this is a long shot, but this is the kind of things I'd be thinking, like, because the light itself is not enough.
Yeah, or is there another highlight somewhere in the room? I don't know, maybe there's a glowing Jesus up in the stained glass or something. I don't know, but I'm because why it's falling flat for me visually as I'm shooting is because it's just interesting light and it's just right in the middle of my frame. Yeah. Is there something else? Is there another highlight that I could use to balance it out and make a more interesting composition? Mm-hmm. There's a missing ingredients, and that's what we're thinking about in the moment.
Yeah. Okay, so this is, I don't know if this is the same way, it doesn't matter. Now, this looks like it was probably in a church, obviously. You may have been very restricted. You probably were restricted in terms of where you could go. This shoot through is achieving one thing only, and that's framing the subject. It frames the subject, it gets my eye go where it wants to go, but that's all. And I think a shoot through, like shooting through something and layering something, has to achieve more than just framing the subject. It either has to layer a story in, or simplify the frame down to what's interesting. This foreground isn't adding any context or interesting layer. All it's doing is framing the subject. How could it be? Well, okay, let's just play out some scenarios on when it would make sense to shoot here. Let's say this were a pew you were shooting through, and let's say there was like someone's hand on the railing here. Or maybe there was a face through here that was giving you a reaction. That would be maybe more, give you a reason to shoot through this. As is, it just feels like you're shooting through it for the sake of shooting through it.
In fact, if you were to, on that idea, if you were to move your camera a little bit closer, perhaps that would have brought that lady's head who's hidden behind here. By moving slightly closer, that would have possibly moved her head over into this opening, and maybe there's an interesting reaction on her face.
Yeah.
Or maybe we pull back a bit because there is a hand or something to give more context out there. But generally speaking, a good rule of thumb for us when we're shooting through something is to just pause and ask yourself, why am I shooting through this? Because often there's a very good reason, and hopefully multiple reasons. Oh, it's because I'm trying to blur out these distractions over here and frame the subject. Or maybe I'm trying to get the impression we're peeking in on a private moment. Often there are very good reasons or I'm layering in a foreground story.
Or I just want to try something for fun.
Right.
It's also a valid reason, especially with photography. It's totally.
Or what happens when we ask ourselves that is we snap out of it and we realize, actually, there's no good reason to be shooting through this, and it's just distracting me from going somewhere else and doing something different that would be more interesting.
Yeah, and we say this because this is what we've had to do ourselves.
Yeah.
Like especially, I think we're especially around year 6 or 7 of our career, we were doing all sorts of gimmicky things with our cameras with no purpose. Right, like shooting through things just for, well, this is what we do. We shoot through things because it's cool. Or reflecting, like we're reflecting all this shit for no reason whatsoever.
So maybe
so
maybe you do this, and you ask yourself that question. You realize, you know what, this isn't working, and so you don't spend too much time here. You move on to something else, or you realize I'm on to something. This could line up. This does make sense. In which case you commit to it and you wait and you try to perfect it. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Really interesting moment here. Okay, so we've obviously, I think we've got the 24-70 on, which is not your frame in a scenario like this, right? Because instead of actually filling the frame, getting you where that camera needs to be, you're zooming your lens, and you're getting a little bit of unintentional compositions in my mind, right? So for me, this moment is literally right here. I don't even think we need that lady's face, but
no,
let's just see.
You don't need the face.
Let's just see.
It'll be more interesting and mysterious without the face.
Yeah.
Because now the viewer gets to fill in the missing information beyond the edge where that arm disappears. And so now this is...
That's a much more interesting to look at. It's a more interesting moment. And I think you could get to this. I mean, obviously, we could crop to this, but it would be so much stronger a photo if you got to this in the field. So take that 24-70 off, or have the willpower to use it as a prime lens. Because zooming the lens it's going to impact your compositions. And really what you had to ask yourself in this scenario is, what can I eliminate to make this frame stronger? Because here we've got all this information, right? We've got our arm, we've got our body, we've got all these people in the background, we've got the chandelier, we've got the curtains, we've got the table, we've got the plates. The story is in 2 layers here. That's it.
And often less is more in busy scenes like this. Sometimes more is more.
Sometimes.
Right? If we're going for a complex, multi-layer type image where the viewer gets to search all over and there's Easter eggs all over the place, more is more, but often less is more. And this is a situation where really, if you just pause in the moment and ask yourself, all of the information outside of this crop isn't adding to the story. It's subtracting from it.
Yeah. Okay. I love that I see you guys as lens choices here because I'm critiquing your lens choice more than anything else. Again, great scene here. I love that this is something you saw and that you tried to achieve. Listen, it doesn't matter how good a photographer you are, trying to achieve a frame like this with a 70 millimeter is going to be so much harder than achieving it with a 50 or a 35, right? Because if you're with a 70 millimeter lens or 70 to 200, you know, in order to make small changes in your composition and in order to move with the movement of the people, you have to be making really big steps from side to side or front to back to make compositional adjustments. When you have a wider lens on, like a 50 or 35, you know, if I have my 35 on and I'm photographing this, going from here to here can make a huge change in my composition, right? With a wider lens. And especially when you've got moving subjects like this, they're obviously dancing, you have to move with the subjects as you're photographing. With the 70-200, there's no way you can move those fast enough to you just have to wait for your composition to hopefully line up and hope that it works out. Whereas with a wider lens, you're moving with your subjects, you're moving with the scene as it's changing and evolving, and not just hoping for it to line up, you're getting it to line up.
Yeah. Because, I mean, look at what's our wish list here, right? Our wish list is we wish we had just a little bit more breathing space and separation around that guy's head, in between the other two heads. I wish I maybe had a little bit more of that hand on the shoulder.
A bit more context in the dancing.
Maybe I wish I had his whole head. None of that stuff can be achieved with this lens from where you are, right? Like, whereas wider lens, several steps closer, now you can make micro adjustments to really fix up your composition, and you'll feel it more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Okay, this one's a real reflection, I think.
Yep.
Or at least looks like it.
Yep.
Here's my one critique on this image. Okay, technically, the photographer pulled this off. It's interesting to look at to a certain extent, but this is what I call a lifeless representation of an idea. Okay, it's an idea that the photographer had.
So well executed idea.
Well executed. You got symmetry going for you, you're exposed for the highlights, you got a bright spot, it's you've solved some technical problems by getting to this. But in terms of the couple, it's lifeless, right? Are your couple gonna love this? Yes, your couple are gonna love this, but it's kind of like that eye candy that gets people more interested in the photography technique as opposed to the story. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the holy grail is when we can do both. In a portrait where, you know, we're trying to pull off a stylized aesthetic, you know, look like this, you know, we can make tasty eye candy. That's also something that's
it's hard. Like if they're this small,
when they're that small, it is very
Yeah.
difficult to do anything other than the lifeless penguin pose. And this is always the starting pose while we figure out the composition, figure out the lighting, figure out how to pull off the mechanics of the technical side of executing the image, and then the final ingredient is, okay, is there something other than the penguin pose that we could do here to like get in some movement, show something that's somehow unique, could be.
Maybe it's like cracking a bottle of champagne or dancing, or I don't know what it is. But it's very hard to do.
But that's, I mean, getting back to the question about, you know, what should be submitted for contest or not. If it's a competitive contest, like let's say Fearless, for example, with judges who've seen many images like this, right? I mean, we're all doing this now. In order to stand out, it has to have that something special, and that's what we're trying to share here. The missing something special is something with life. Where's the life? Yeah.
Okay. Well, at least the photographer had on a 35 here. This is good. And it looks like we just got a front flash.
Well, there is a little bit of rim light behind his head, but that could just be probably from the sparklers. So I think the light's working. I would say, so for me personally, if I'm in this moment and I can freeze frame the moment and I can change anything about the lens that's on my camera and the position of my camera, is 35 is great. Could it be stronger with a wider lens? Yeah.
Definitely.
So if I had my 16 to 35, I think wider, like 24, maybe even 16. Because I feel like there's even more of these hands and sparklers. I could frame them at the leading lines. And I would also probably get a little bit lower so that I could tilt my camera upwards more. So it's less legs, knees, feet, and more hands.
Sorry,
sparklers.
Yeah, so I think a little closer would be stronger. And then technically, lighting wise, back flash might benefit this as well. You got a good front flash, but there's not a lot of depth behind them.
It would pop more.
They would just pop more from the background if there's a back flash.
Now, that's not always possible, of course, but if you have the luxury of an assistant.
But like if Lanny and I are shooting an exit like this, I would have the 16-35 on. I would have a front flash just like you have here, sort of pointed right at the couple, or at least a little, maybe tilted a little bit up so it's not quite so harsh. And then that front flash would be triggering another flash that Lanny would be holding in behind the couple. Yeah. I mean, this is actually a really good example of that concept we were talking about, which is sky or ground, right? Even a crop's not going to work on this, but I'm just going to put that, right? That's all you need to do.
The idea, I mean, obviously that's not a great, but because the idea of how we could recompose to just simplify it down to the umbrellas in your couple and the sky.
That's all you need, because there's nothing interesting in the ground.
Maybe the water.
I don't need no, I'd say it's umbrella, sky, ground. Yeah, that's it.
The ground, if we did have really interesting shadows, maybe just the ground and their feet maybe.
And if you did that, you take all this information and move it up here. And I treat this horizontally as well, because the information that is horizontal is going to be more interesting than the information that's vertical.
Because, I mean, we can just look at this and realize, oh, there's more information on the left edge, i.e. more umbrellas and sky that could benefit if we could include it. But really, we don't need all that information. From their feet down, that's not adding anything. So that's why we turn our camera back the way it belongs. It's very hard to fill the frame vertically. There's few scenarios where it makes more sense to go like this versus this.
Okay, so what do we got here?
Well, wait, there's an obvious crop.
It's an obvious crop, and there's, okay, so this to me looks like a great scouting shot. Okay, so you're in bride prep, you see the potential of that mirror, you see the bride in the foreground, you're like, okay, I've scouted out a great shot. But that's the limit of this photo. It's a scouting shot. You hit that, right? Oh yeah, that's way better. So the problem we've been trying to solve here is, less is more. Again, in this scenario at least. Simplify the frame down to what's interesting. It's the makeup brushes, it's the mirror, and it's the foreground of the bride's face. We don't need her shoulder, we don't need her arm. In fact, this looks quite distortedly large because it is a 24mm lens and it's closest to your lens, so all we need is her face. And then we need a moment to happen, right? Like, why is she sitting there? She's not sitting there to smile for a reflection in the mirror. She's sitting there to get her makeup done. So scout this out in your mind and then line it up with a moment that makes sense.
Wait for that brush to come in.
Yeah.
Something, a laugh, something.
Yeah, so, and then obviously when the brush comes in, you're gonna have to make adjustments because the makeup artist is gonna come in and her body might block this, right? Or their body might block this. So you're gonna have to make adjustments, which will be easy with the 24 lens.
Now, the other thing I would say is, assuming this bride is sitting in this chair for, half an hour, or, however long it takes to have their hair or makeup done. Sometimes we've got a lot of time. It's like a creative playground, so we can play around. So while we're waiting for those moments, we can question, ask ourselves, are there additional stories we can layer in? Lighting-wise, what I do, can you zoom out just so we can see? Lighting-wise, I think what I would be drawn to try, because the highlights behind her face are a bit of a distraction, right?
I find it like a clean canvas. I don't find that distraction at all.
Yeah, but I feel like
She's centered on it. I'm allowed to. I think it's
I feel
helpful to people
it is.
that we show
I feel
different
like
opinions.
she would pop more if this wall behind her, or whatever it is, were dark. And so what I would be inclined to try is mounting a flash somewhere, like clamp it onto this, or here, and aim it towards the bride, because it's positioned to short light the bride dramatically. So this reflection would be short lit. And because the light's coming from
This reflection would be broad lit if that flash were there.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, I'm getting mixed. Anyways, that light would, yes, you're right. Broad lighting her, but short lighting, kind of like rim lighting here, which could be interesting. I don't know if I would like it visually, but I would certainly try it if I had 20 or 30 minutes to play around, because it would allow me to go darker with the ambient exposure, kind of darken out some of those midtones, so that the reflection pops more and we get interesting, more dramatic light across your face. Something to try.
And I could say, having done many bride preps, that I would try that too, and then I'd usually abandon it. And the reason I'd abandon it is because I realized in order to get that wall dark, I'd lose all the light that's on the brushes, and I think that those brushes in that tabletop give good context. Plus, if I'm trying to line up a moment, and it's good enough with natural light, just that good light on her face, there's a window light coming in, the less technical I can make it, the more I can be present in the moment and not have my brain wrapped up with the technical considerations of using a flash.
One camera set for natural light, the other camera linked to your flash, dialed in for off-camera flash. I would be trying it. I don't have the luxury, I don't often shoot the bride prep because I'm doing the guys, and the guys don't sit in one place for 30 minutes at a time. So if I see that opportunity, I want to try off-camera flash.
Okay, so last one here.
Okay, this is, we'll leave the toning aside. We can talk about post-production in a second. Compositionally, this is an example of where, the photographer has consciously decided to fill the frame with mostly sky. They decided the sky is the most interesting part, we're going to fill the frame mostly with sky.
Which makes sense.
Makes sense. And personally, I probably would have even pushed that further. I probably would have moved them right down to the bottom edge and excluded almost all of the hillside. Would be probably even, and maybe even asking, do I need the full bodies or not? But oh yeah. Now we're on to something. Okay, so just zoom out again. So yes. Lowering the camera a little bit more, tilting it up, then maybe you can still include their full bodies, but just exclude that sky entirely. You're onto something here, but you're not quite there.
And then we just need a moment, right? I can't tell what the couple are doing here. It looks like she's fixing her veil. He's kind of half walked by her. You've got the light, you got the exposure that you want. Then comes the composition, which Lanny just talked about, and then you put in the moment, especially with the portrait, right? You separate those three elements, and you don't need much here. Like it's mostly about sky. It's mostly featuring the sky, right? So, having them walking, holding hands a little bit separated, or if he were leading her, like if he were in front of her, holding her arm, and she was fixing her veil like that, that'd be fine. But it just looks unintentional here. So.
Yeah. And then I'll just say, again, I feel like this is another example of where the toning pulls me out of the environment, pulls me out of their moment, because it's overcooked for my eyes.
They look orange.
They look like Oompa Loompas. Okay, so the skin tones, we can control those skin tones separate from, I can understand wanting to go for the drama, pull out the drama in the sky, those dramatic clouds. but it's almost pushed a bit too far. And if we are going to push that style, we want to control it on our dress, right? So control our dress and the skin.
Which we call localized adjustments,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, all right, so that was the last one.
Yeah, I think we're done.
Yes, that was the last one.
Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. Our community always appreciate your time.
Yeah.
So as a conclusion, I'm trying to ask everyone, every guest that comes here for the critique session, what do you think? What makes an image a great wedding image?
A great wedding image.
Yes.
I mean, I would say.
Is it? It has to be good for the client. It has to.
That's a good image. So I say, regardless of whether it's a good wedding image or not, a good photo should be a good photo. It should stand alone as just a good photo, regardless of
Wedding, family.
wedding, whatever, right? A good photo.
Street.
So it's the same thing. First thing that comes to mind for me is the image gives me some sort of a reaction. A visual, or a physical or a visual reaction. It's like some sort of feel.
That's what I was saying.
Stole that from her.
Yes.
And also, I think a successful image is one that I don't know who I'm stealing this from, but somebody said it makes the viewer feel as though they were present in that scene that was being photographed. That's a strong.
So
image.
it has to move you a little bit.
Yeah, and my physical reaction, like, maybe it's just a little bit of an elevated heart rate. Maybe you're like, or maybe it makes you sad. Maybe it changes the slight chemical in your brain, just something. And obviously not every photo is going to do that, right? Like, some good wedding photos are just a family portrait, and it will give the viewer of the people that love those people a physical reaction, right? It's not a good photo for the bride and groom isn't the same as a good photo for strangers that are going to your website. And so that's one of the filters that we've got the photos that we deliver, right? And the definition of what a good photo is for what we deliver our clients is very different from what we share on our website, right? What we share on our website has to resonate with complete strangers.
But yeah, make them feel something.
Is there any online workshop that you are cooking right now? I mean, if you want to share something with our audience, maybe you can tell us what your future plans are.
Well, our flagship semester program is open. That's where we pour all our energy is into that.
Yeah, so there's two menu. I often.
It's called Continua.
Yeah, two menu. It's a semester online program. It's always open and for sale. I would suggest if you're interested in that, you reach out to me. And I'm saying this because I know Romanian currency is very different than American currency, which is what we charge you, even though we're Canadian. And sometimes quietly behind the scenes, I'm able to work something out. So, yeah, if you're interested in that, just reach out to me and we'll see what we can do. Yeah, and then we've got the editing.
That's very kind from you. That's very, very, very kind.
Same goes for Editopia. So Editopia is my post-production course, and it's online as well. It's open for enrollment. And same thing, if you reach out to Erika, she'll find a way to get you in for a little bit.
Oh, someone is asking about the Metanoia workshop.
Metanoia, that's the 14-week semester program. It's open for enrollment.
It's always open.
That's what Erika's saying. Like, don't just hit the enroll button if you're serious.
You
can, but if you reach out to Erika privately, she could probably sneak you a scholarship. Yeah.
Okay, guys.
Not a free scholarship.
Not a full scholarship. Yeah. But
Thank you so much.
That's where we spend all our time. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you so much again for everything. It's always a pleasure to have you around our community, and we know they love you. They always ask for you to be here in a way. So So because you are so far, we are trying to find different alternatives. I mean, this live was really good for the community.
Listen, we love critiquing it because it doesn't. It's always so valuable. It opens up all these portals into feedback that we wouldn't access necessarily in a predetermined workshop. So
So I just want to thank everybody who submitted and everybody who was in the hot seat. Thanks for being brave because we all benefited from that.
And just remember, like everything we talked about, it's not whether you're a good photographer or a bad photographer. It's literally about how can we be better, and that's what we're all on the journey for. So don't take the feedback seriously, but not personally. Like don't attribute it to your self-worth. That's not what this is about at all. You should see the photos I'm culling from our latest wedding. Like you would think if you saw what I saw, you think we're the world's worst photographers. We're just really good at fooling you guys into thinking that we're pretty good. But if you saw
what advice will you give to a photographer starting weddings like right now? I mean, he just shot one wedding. And what advice will you give to a photographer that shot weddings for 10 years?
For 10 years?
Yeah.
Well, it's actually probably the same advice, which is don't try and be a wedding photographer. No, and I'm not dissuading you from the career. I literally don't put yourself in the box of what you think a wedding photographer does.
Yeah.
Follow your own curiosities and your own interests, and as opposed to try to be a wedding photographer.
Speaking from personal experience, once we learned to stop trying to be wedding photographers and embrace the fact that we're just photographers and weddings are the events that we happen to document. It changed everything for us in terms of our obviously the work that we made, but also just the enjoyment factor, enjoying our career. Don't put yourself in that box of trying to do all the things that we think wedding photographers are supposed to do. If you want to make unique work and you want to enjoy your career, just be a photographer and lean into the unique way that you see and think and bring that to your weddings.
So we have a funny question right now. I think you are seeing the studio. So what kind of shampoo Lanny used for his curly hair?
Well, honestly, shampoo does not, my hair does not like shampoo. When I shampoo my hair, it dries it out and turns
it goes like this.
A poof ball. But I shampoo my hair very infrequently because when I do, it takes like a week to recover. So mostly I just condition it. Yeah, honestly.
Okay. Thank you so much, guys. I will ask you to stay a few more minutes after we end this live because I have to tell you something. So we will finish with the same short video that we started. So it's going to be another 1 more minute. So thank you again for sharing your knowledge and take care.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
1 second. Let me where is that? I'm struggling a little bit with this to this place. I don't know where is the mouse. Oh.
Yeah.
Reverse.
We need an awful screen.
Okay. 1 second. I don't know what happened here. I think my computer freezed a little bit. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, you're still coming through.
Okay, we're good to go right now. Thank you guys again. Take care.
Okay, let's run.
Let's count them down.
60 seconds.
59.
58.
57.
56.
55. 54. 53.
52.
51. 50.
49.
48.
47.
46.
45.
44.
43.
42.
41. 40. 39.
38.
37.
36.
35.
34.
33.
32.
31.
30.
29.
28.
27.
26.
25.
24. 23.
22. 21.
20.
19.
18.
17.
16.
15.
14. 13. 12.
11.
10.
9.
8.
6.
6. What happened to 7?
Just kidding.
7.
4.
3.
2.
1.